Okay, so real talk. Imagine a guy who loved teaching so much that he just started coaching his friends for CAT, for free. No classroom, no nothing. Those friends cracked the exam. Their friends came, then their friends' friends. And before anyone could process what was happening, this guy built a 1 lakh crore rupee company. Bro, 1 lakh crore. It's a huge amount. That's Byju Raveendran's story. A company that completely ate India's edtech space, had the whole world watching, and then very publicly, very messily, started falling apart. Today we're covering the glow-up, the collapse, and the lessons. Whether you're a founder, a student, or just someone who loves watching empire collapse content, this one's for you. Let's get into it. Byju grew up in Kerala, regular household. Both parents were teachers. Nothing flashy, nothing glamorous. He wasn't even that obsessed with studying kid growing up, more of a cricket guy. But what he had was this insane ability to explain things in a way that actually made sense. The kind of teacher who doesn't make you feel dumb for not getting it. The kind who makes learning feel less like a punishment. 2003. A friend asked him to help with cat prep. Byju said sure, and then casually scored 100 percentile himself. Without coaching, just his own brain and his own method. Word spread. Because of course it did. This is India, and when someone helps you crack a competitive exam, you tell everyone you know. 2011, he formally registered Think and Learn Private Limited. By this point, he was filling auditoriums in Bangalore. At one point, over 1,200 students showed up to a single session. No app, no funding, no algorithm. 2015, Byju's learning app launched. A teacher's passion met technology, and India got its first real look at what the future of education could actually look like. The app blew up almost immediately. High-quality content, solid animations, and Byju himself in the videos, same style that had already worked for thousands of students in person. It felt personal, like someone actually cared whether you understood or not. And that feeling, that was Byju's first and biggest competitive advantage. 2016 to 17, investors started paying serious attention. Sequoia came in. Zuckerberg initiative. Yes, Mark Zuckerberg's foundation invested. Tencent put money in. 2018 to 19, Byju's officially became India's first edtech unicorn. $1 billion valuation. On paper, everything was perfect. 2020, then COVID hit. Schools shut. Colleges shut. Coaching centers shut. Students were home. Parents were stressed. And Byju's was right there with a solution. Downloads went absolutely ballistic. Valuation crossed 1 lakh crore rupees. Byju Raveendran landed on the Forbes billionaires list. From coaching friends in a room to a certified billionaire whose app was on every middle-class parent's phone in India, the glow-up was real. But okay, pause. Let's actually understand what Byju's business model was. Because this is where things start getting interesting. And by interesting, I mean a little sus. Byju's ran on a freemium model. App free. Basic content free. But the premium courses, those were paid. Packages ranging from 40 to 80,000 rupees. Sometimes more. And from around 2017 onwards, the sales strategy became increasingly aggressive. Sales reps would show up at homes, sit with parents, show demos, talk about their kids' future, and close deals on the spot. A lot of these packages were financed through EMI loans via NBFCs, third-party financial companies, which is fine in concept. But the execution? Very messy. Many parents weren't clearly told they were signing up for a loan. Refund policies were complicated, almost designed to confuse. When complaints came in, the company was slow to act. It prioritized the sale over the relationship. That one cultural choice came back to haunt them hard. There was also a problematic accounting practice that started surfacing around 2021 to 22, multi-year subscription revenue being counted all at once in year one, making growth look better than it actually was. A gap between the optics and the reality. A ticking clock that nobody inside the company was talking about loud enough. Now let's go even deeper on this. Because the subscription selling story at Byju's, it's one of the most eye-opening parts of this entire saga. See, Byju's product was genuinely good. Students liked it. Parents saw results. But the way they sold it, That's where the whole thing started rotting from the inside, especially from around 2018 onwards. As growth pressure intensified, the sales playbook became borderline predatory. Imagine this. A sales rep shows up at your home. They've been trained to not leave without closing the deal. Seriously, there were reports of reps sitting in people's homes for 2, 3 hours, not leaving, just waiting, wearing the family down until they said yes. And the targets these sales reps were given? Absolutely brutal. Daily quotas, weekly pressure. If you didn't hit your numbers, your job was on the line. So what do you think happened? They did whatever it took to close. Parents who couldn't afford the full amount up front were pushed towards EMI options. But here's the catch. Many of them signed up for a third-party NBFC loan without fully understanding that's what it was. So now you have a parent who thinks they're doing a simple installment plan with Byju's, but they actually have a loan with a separate financial company. And that loan, it doesn't pause if the kid stops using the app. It doesn't stop if the content isn't working. It just keeps coming. By 2021 to 22, when complaints exploded on social media, the scale of the problem became impossible to ignore. People went to consumer courts. Stories blew up on Twitter and Reddit. The brand damage was massive and completely self-inflicted. Former Byju's sales employees have spoken about this publicly. They describe immense pressure, unrealistic targets, and a culture where the only question was, how do we get them to sign today? And here's the brutal irony. Byju's had a genuinely good product, a product that could have sold itself through real outcomes and word of mouth. But by choosing aggression over integrity, they poisoned the very well they were drinking from. Speech balloon. This is the subscription struggle nobody talks about enough. It wasn't just about selling courses. It was about selling them in a way that made customers feel trapped, not empowered. And in education, that feeling is unforgivable. Then came the acquisition era. And this is where Byju's really went off. 2021, Akash Institute acquired for 7,300 crore rupees. White Hat Jr. picked up for $300 million earlier. In 2020, Great Learning, Top, Tinker, all snapped up in rapid succession. 2022, GeoGebra and 9 Dots added to the list. At this point, Byju's had spent an estimated $2.5 to $3 billion on acquisitions in under 2 years. At its peak, Byju's had over 50,000 employees. Their logo was literally on the Indian cricket team jersey. Visibility was through the roof. But here's the thing. Buying companies is one thing. Actually integrating them is a completely different and deeply difficult challenge. Different cultures, different systems, different ways of working. Byju's was merging all of this simultaneously while already running a massive and complex core operation. Internally, the cracks were forming. A culture had quietly developed where growth metrics mattered above everything else, above profitability, above customer trust, above basic operational sense. Nobody was asking the most important question: is any of this actually sustainable? 2022, the vibe shift that nobody inside Byju's seemed ready for. Interest rates rose globally. Tech and edtech stocks crashed worldwide. Companies that had been riding inflated. Valuations were getting pulled back to earth hard. Byju's, carrying all that acquisition debt and unchecked spending, was in no shape to absorb the shock. Mid-2022, Deloitte, their auditing firm, resigned. When a reputed global auditor walks out on a client, it's basically their way of publicly saying, something here does not add up, and we don't want our name on it. FY22 financial results came in a massive 18 months late, finally dropping in late 2023. And when they did, over 8,000 crore rupees in losses. The revenue recognition issues were now officially a regulatory concern. 2023, BCCI dropped Byju's as a sponsor because payments weren't coming through. Lenders went to court over a $1.2 billion loan. Insolvency proceedings under the IBC were filed. Salaries got delayed. Layoffs hit in waves. Thousands of people who had joined this company believing in a dream got uncertainty and pink slips instead. 2024, the Supreme Court got involved. Legal battles over asset transfers, investor disputes, and management control continued. The situation remained deeply uncertain. The same company that Zuckerberg's foundation had once bet on was now deep in one of the messiest corporate Meltdowns in Indian startup history. So what actually went wrong? And more importantly, what can we learn from it? Because Byju's downfall should at least serve as a free MBA for everyone paying attention. Here's what the data, the timeline, and the people involved actually teach us. Lesson 1. Sustainable growth is the only growth that counts. From 2015 to 2022, Byju's raised over $5 billion. And almost all of it went out the door. Building slow and building right isn't boring. It's how you build something that lasts. Lesson 2. Your customers are your most important stakeholder, not your VCs, not your board. The moment you treat customers as targets instead of people to genuinely serve, you've started the clock on your own downfall. Lesson 3. Your sales culture is your brand culture. How you sell is how you are perceived. If your salespeople are trained to manipulate instead of inform, that reputation will reach every corner of the internet. Fast. Lesson 4. Cash flow is not optional. If your business can't survive without constant outside capital, you don't have a business. Obsess over the path to profitability. Concretely, with a real timeline. Lesson 5. Integrate before you acquire again. Byju spent nearly $3 billion in acquisitions between 2020 and 2022. Almost none of them were properly integrated. More is not always better. Better is always better. And lesson 6. Transparency is your most strategic asset. Being honest about your challenges keeps people in your corner when things get hard. Hiding problems doesn't make them disappear. It just makes the eventual explosion much, much bigger. 2024 and beyond. The question everyone is asking: can Byju's actually stage a comeback? Akash Institute is still a real, solid asset. Trusted brand. Proven offline model. Decades of student credibility. If Byju strips back the noise and rebuilds around Akash, there might be a path forward. Apple nearly went bankrupt in 1997. Marvel filed for bankruptcy and built the biggest franchise in cinema history. Comebacks are possible, but only when you're fully honest about what went wrong. India's education market is massive, underserved, and hungry for quality. The opportunity hasn't gone anywhere. The question is whether Byju's can show up to it responsibly, or whether it's simply too late. Byju's is not just one company's story. It's a mirror. It shows us what happens when ambition isn't paired with accountability. When growth becomes the goal instead of a byproduct of actually doing good work. The impact Byju's made on millions of students across India, that was real. The mistakes were equally real. And the final chapter is still being written. So I want to know, do you think Byju's can actually come back? Or has the trust been too broken to recover? Drop your take in the comments. And if this video made you think, even a little, hit subscribe. Because on this channel, we don't just study the wins. We sit with the losses too. Because that, right there, is the most underrated form of education there is.